I don't scare easily, which is probably why I stayed longer than I should have. Looking back, there were at least 3 points where I could have turned around, and none of this would have happened. But at the time, everything felt explainable, even the part where I realized I was no longer alone out there. I grew up in Oregon, just outside a small town surrounded by national forest land. My dad worked for the Forest Service, and I spent most of my childhood tagging along with him, learning how to read terrain, how to navigate without relying on a phone, how to tell when the weather was about to shift, just by the way the trees moved. By the time I was in my mid-20s, hiking alone wasn't something I thought twice about. It was normal, comfortable, even. I'm 31 now, and this happened about 2 years ago. At the time, I was working remotely, which gave me a lot of flexibility. I'd started taking these solo weekend trips. Nothing extreme, just overnight hikes into areas I was already somewhat familiar with. The place this happened was about a 2-hour drive from where I lived. Not exactly remote wilderness, but remote enough that once you got a few miles in, you wouldn't see anyone. I'd been there a handful of times before. The plan was simple: park at the trailhead, hike in about 6 miles to a clearing near a creek, camp for the night, and head back the next morning. I packed light, but responsibly. Tent, water filter, extra layers, headlamp, a Garmin GPS, and a paper map as backup. The weather was clear, maybe a little colder than expected for early fall, but nothing concerning. The first few hours were completely uneventful. The trail was in decent shape, a little overgrown in sections, but still easy to follow. I remember noticing how quiet it was, though. Not silent, exactly, just muted, no birds, which was unusual. Normally you'd hear something. Jays, woodpeckers, even just random movement in the brush. But it felt like everything had just decided to be somewhere else that day. I brushed it off. By the time I reached the clearing, it was late afternoon. I set up camp near the creek, filtered some water, and ate a quick meal. Everything felt normal again at that point. I even remember thinking that I'd been overreacting earlier. The quiet, the weird feeling, it all seemed kind of stupid. In hindsight, that didn't last. The first thing that really stood out happened just after sunset. I was sitting near my tent, headlamp off, just letting my eyes adjust to the dark. There was enough moonlight to see the outline of the trees, the creek reflecting faintly through the brush. And then, I heard something walking, not in the distance, close. It wasn't heavy, not like a deer or elk. Lighter, more deliberate, slow steps, spaced out. I remember holding my breath, trying to pinpoint the direction. It sounded like it was circling just beyond the edge of the clearing. Staying in the tree line, I called out, just a quick hey, thinking maybe it was another hiker. The footsteps stopped. Immediately, no response, no movement, just silence. I waited for maybe a minute, then told myself it was probably an animal that got spooked. That made the most sense. Eventually, I crawled into my tent and zipped it up, but I didn't really relax. I kept my headlamp within reach, just in case. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but it was still dark. At first, I didn't know why I was awake. Then, I heard it again, footsteps. Closer this time, right outside the tent. I froze, completely still, barely even breathing. The nylon of the tent felt way too thin at that moment. I could hear the sound of something shifting its weight in the leaves. Just a few feet away, not pacing anymore, standing there, listening. That's what it felt like it was aware of me in the same way I was aware of it. I reached slowly for my headlamp and clicked it on. The light filled the tent, but of course, it didn't do much outside. I could see the vague shadow of something moving across the fabric, just for a second, like it had stepped out of the beam. Then the footsteps started again, retreating back toward the trees. I didn't sleep after that. As soon as it started getting light, I packed up. I didn't bother making coffee or eating. Just broke down the tent, shoved everything into my pack, and started heading back the way I came. That's when things stopped making sense. The trail should have been easy to follow, even in low light. But after about 20 minutes, I started noticing that things didn't quite line up. A fallen log I didn't remember stepping over. A section where the trail seemed narrower than it should have been. I pulled out my GPS. According to it, I was still on track. Exactly where I should be. That didn't match what I was seeing. I stopped, turned around, and tried to retrace my steps back to camp, just to reset. But after a few minutes of walking, I realized I couldn't find the clearing again either. It was like the entire area had shifted, just slightly, out of place. That's when I felt it again. That same quiet from the day before, but heavier now, pressing in. And then, I heard my name, clear as anything. Ryan. It came from somewhere ahead of me, maybe 30 or 40 feet into the trees. I didn't respond. I didn't move. I just stood there, trying to process it. The voice sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. Not exactly. It wasn't distorted or whispery or anything like that. It was just normal. That was the worst part. A few seconds passed, and then it said my name again, closer this time. I wish I could say I handled it well, but I didn't. I turned and started walking in the opposite direction, faster than I probably should have, given the terrain. I didn't run, but it wasn't far off. The voice didn't follow. Not right away. For a while, all I could hear was my own movement. Boots hitting dirt, branches brushing against my jacket, my breathing getting louder. And then, after maybe 5 minutes, I heard something else. Footsteps, matching my pace. Off to my right. I stopped. They stopped. I started walking again. So did they. That's when it hit me that whatever this was, it wasn't just moving randomly. It was keeping up with me, staying just out of sight, but close enough that I could hear it whenever I wasn't making too much noise. I remember thinking, very clearly, that I needed to make a decision. Either I keep moving and hope I eventually hit the trailhead, or I stop and confront whatever's out there. Neither option felt good. I chose to keep moving. I picked a direction and committed to it, using the GPS as a rough guide, even though I didn't fully trust it anymore. The terrain started sloping downward, which I figured might lead me back toward the main trail, or at least a road. The footsteps stayed with me the entire time, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, but always there. And then, suddenly, they stopped. Just gone. The silence that followed was worse than anything before it. It felt wrong, like the woods were holding their breath. I slowed down, scanning the trees, trying to see anything that might explain it. That's when I saw the structure. It was partially hidden behind a cluster of trees, maybe 50 feet off to my left. Small, weathered, not something I recognized from any of the maps I'd seen. It looked like an old hunting shelter, or something someone had thrown together years ago. There was a door, and it was open. I don't know why I went towards it. I've asked myself that a lot. I think part of me just needed something solid. Something that made sense. The inside was dark, but dry. There was a crude bench along one wall, some old cans in the corner, and a pile of what looked like blankets. It didn't look recently used, but it wasn't completely abandoned either. And then, I noticed the floor. There were scratches, long, uneven marks in the wood, concentrated near the center of the room, like something had been dragged, repeatedly. I remember crouching down to get a closer look, and that's when I heard it. From directly behind me, Ryan. I spun around so fast I nearly lost my balance. No one was there, but the door I was sure had been open when I walked in, was now closed. I don't remember opening it. I don't remember touching it at all. I just remember getting out. I threw the door open, stumbled back into the trees, and ran. This time, I didn't try to stay calm or conserve energy. I just ran. I didn't care about direction anymore. Just distance. At some point, I hit a real trail. I knew it immediately. The ground was packed. The markings were familiar, and within another hour, I made it back to the trailhead. There was a car there I didn't recognize, which was the first sign of another person I'd seen since the day before. I didn't stick around. I drove straight home. I didn't tell anyone about it for a while. When I finally did, I kept it vague. Just said I got turned around, had a bad experience. Nothing specific. The more detailed version never really feels right coming out of my mouth. It sounds wrong. Even to me, I've gone over it a lot since then, trying to make sense of it. The most reasonable explanation is that I got disoriented. Fatigue, stress, maybe even mild hypothermia messing with my perception. The voice could have been my brain trying to fill in the silence with something familiar. That doesn't explain the footsteps, though, or how they matched my pace. The second possibility is that there was someone else out there. Someone who knew the area better than I did, and was, I don't know, messing with me, tracking me, maybe? The structure, the voice, all of it, part of something intentional. I don't like that explanation either. And then there's the third option, which I try not to think about too much. That whatever was out there didn't just follow me. It knew me, or at least knew enough to pretend. I haven't been back to that area since, not because I think something is still there waiting for me, but because I'm not sure I'd trust myself if I heard my name again.